this is Daniel and Ruth from Tel Aviv.
Hi.
From the sunny, beautiful weather today.
Yeah, beautiful day.
Yeah, and back on Israel Uncovered.
Yep. And what a week it has been.
Crazy week.
Crazy times.
Yeah, crazy times. It's still a very unsettling time. Just to say, today we're going to talk about, we're going to obviously mention lots of stuff that happened during the week, but we wanted to chat about propaganda wars and kind of like all the videos that people are seeing. Actually, a friend of mine last week asked me, can you explain me what's going on? She was looking at this, she was watching some of the hostage release that they're doing these weekends as some kind of like, I don't know, TV show, I don't know, Hunger Games,
Right.
weekend special extravaganza for the world to just watch that grossness.
Yeah.
So she's like, can you explain to me like what is happening? People don't understand what's happening.
What, like why Hamas are parading?
What's happening in the video? Everything is really confusing. For someone there is like, what's happening? All these people in Gaza walking in the middle of the street, they're like, these hostages being paraded, this woman throwing confetti, these Hamas people with the guns. People are confused. People don't get. People, and by the way,
Hamas,
understandably confused.
Hamas are declaring victory.
Right.
And this is, and it's so clear to me, it's exactly how cowards behave, and when people are weak, it's how they behave, by exerting this power and these ceremonies, and it's all for the show, it's all a show for the world.
Right, but on the other hand,
but a lot of the world are buying it.
That's fine, but on the other hand, you have like, let's say most of the people in Gaza, now that they can move back to north, they're literally going back to not having a house. They're going back to rubble. So yes, they are declaring victory, but that's not the reality.
No.
And I also think when they declare victory and everyone here gets very agitated, oh my God, look, they're declaring victory and they have the guns again and they're in power again. Are they really in power? Is that really a victory? So how do you, that's why everyone is confused.
Everyone is confused, and I do think Hamas have recruited a huge number since whilst we've been taking them out, they've also been recruiting, and I think they're not as depleted as we may have thought. At the same time, we have done substantial damage to demilitarize. But I think they have recruited huge numbers.
But how much of that is kind of like?
But
let's say like if I. But that's my point. Is like I could also argue that you think that maybe based on Israeli propaganda,
right?
Or because people just throw, or even Hamas propaganda because they want to look really powerful. So how much of it, like how does propaganda work, and how do you? Do you have any mechanisms to try to figure out what's real and what's not when you watch the news?
I try to listen or watch, read from my regular sources, which keeps me calm, actually. So I really love the Times of Israel.
Right.
I love it. I find it really informative. It seems to speak my language. And I think I get facts and I get things, I like that outlet. When it comes to British media, I just can't trust it. I watching Sky News when I've seen the hostage release, this narrative is so skewed and it's so frustrating as a British person to see how they are presenting.
But for someone, let's say
it's
I don't know. When I was at the BBC, everyone read The Guardian. So for a Guardian reader, people feel the same as you do, right? They're like, it's comforting. I can trust them. They present me the facts. It's the place I go for my news. I like their angle. They think like me. They would say exactly everything you said. They would say about that. So how can anyone decode what's real, what's not, what's propaganda, what's like what how?
I don't know is the answer.
Right.
What I do know is that terrorism is very effective on our emotions, on our physical health, on our mental health, and really brilliant at keeping everybody incredibly unsettled.
Right. But then that's the impact of people here.
Yeah.
But for example, like in the UK,
Yeah.
for example, even like with the protests, pro-Palestine protests,
Mhm.
what's the impact of propaganda on like fueling those protests or not? Or are they completely spontaneous and people are just really like,
They're very organised
okay,
by anti-Semites.
okay,
And they are...
are they part of the propaganda against Israel?
Of
Are they
course,
funded?
of
Like
course.
what? But that's what I mean. How?
But I do think, so whilst these they're not great, these protests at all, but the silent majority I don't think are buying into it. They don't want to see
I
it.
agree with that.
Um,
I agree with that for most protests, by the way.
But I
would've-
think it's really time that the silent majority start speaking up or finding an angle to speak and support really what their Western values are, and try to connect what Israel is doing
Really?
to, yeah,
I don't know. I'd challenge you on that.
okay,
I would say, sorry, today I just woke up wanting to play devil's advocate.
it's okay.
So
Which isn't great for me because I'm not in a particularly...
I know, we're both like
So
zombies.
I'm very, very,
like that.
yeah.
Well, the whole country's feeling like that. I think like with the whole situation, everyone is really unsettled, confused, uncertain. Like it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's so much to deal with, and also, as you know, I moved here so recently, so I'm dealing with all the bureaucracy of this country,
Right.
which is really head fucky,
Yeah.
to say the least.
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah. Anyway.
So
Back to
no.
propaganda.
No, so I was gonna say that, you know, the same could be say, let's say about, I don't know, some pro-Israel march in London. The same could be say about, that's why when people say, and when you say the silent majority should speak up, I'm like, why? I think the silent majority should stay home, watch the Netflix show and eat the nachos. And that's what I want to do as well. That's why I like never, why should they speak up about some conflict in the Middle East? Why should they make the connection about how then the Western values is like, I don't know, maybe because I'm like the anti-activist and my mission and my vision in life is to just answer my emails in the morning and watch TV in the evenings.
I worry. Listen, for me, the UK has become unrecognisable to me. It really not my home anymore. And when I lived here in 2015, when I made Aliyah, I used to really look forward to going back to the UK for a few days,
Right.
visit friends and family, whatever. And actually, I'm going back in a couple of weeks, next week actually, and I'm not looking forward to it. I don't want to see what I know I'm going to see. I'm going to feel uncomfortable on my home streets, and
Why do you feel
that-
uncomfortable in your home screen? Elaborate on that.
so firstly, so before I left this time around in November, October 2024, I was opening my blinds in my bedroom, and across the street is a massive Palestinian flag in the window of the neighbouring apartment building. I don't want to be opening my blinds and seeing that.
Well, what do you care? I'm from Peru. Why if I just like put a Peruvian flag on my window? I mean, you can put whatever flag you
You
want.
can put whatever flag you want, but I for me, that's a show of supporting terrorism,
Right.
and that's uncomfortable for me. I will continue to wear my yellow ribbon, it is inside, on the streets of London, and I will have to be ultra vigilant. I will have to experience death stares from people
Right.
as I walk down the street because I'm wearing a yellow ribbon. I'm not even wearing a mug and Dovid.
Right.
I'm wearing a yellow ribbon
Right.
for our hostages.
Right. Some people would say that's propaganda. You see what I mean? It's such a hard and that
Propaganda. This is a humanity.
true. I know. To me, it's a yellow ribbon to bring the host. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no
Well, it's
propaganda in that. It's humanity.
Right. It's like a kind of like a HIV red ribbon or like a cancer, like a breast cancer thing. He's not saying yeah. But then, funnily enough, then they do become it's kind of like I feel like a lot of things that start with very pure humanitarian causes, a few months down the line they become so politicized, and then it's like, well, if you're wearing a ribbon, you're like for like a deal with Hamas. If you don't wear a ribbon, so like everything just takes a political angle. By the way, same like
and sides as well.
And sides, exactly, right or left or whatever. So everything just becomes so quickly politicized. It's a little bit like the Black Lives Matter. Like it starts like with a very pure anti-racist. I don't know if it starts like that or if it's, you know, by design trying to start like this and then become something else. But you know, I do get a sense that like then okay, everyone can go behind that, like, or the Me Too, Black Lives Matter is like nobody can argue with that. Yeah, nobody can argue with that. But then very quickly, like if 3 months later the Black Lives Matter becomes defund the police, America's like all of these like things, like inflammatory things, you're like, I'm not sure this is. I'm not even sure if the people who started it, that's where they hope for it to go, or if it was intentional. I don't know.
But they're being funded. They're being funded a huge amount. You know, and when I think of the protests, but here, the anti-government protests before October 7th, they were funded largely by America, I think. I'm pretty sure it was the US funding those protests.
I have no idea. I have no idea who funded the anti-government protests here.
They were huge.
Yeah, and they have big stages and they have a huge setup. Like, and they have like everyone gets like. I mean, I walked past one day and it's like I got like a free not because I was protesting, but I just got like a free t-shirt, a free hoodie. People handing water. Like there's all these. Like there's a huge infrastructure. You can get a banner. So I'm like. I mean, I don't know who's funding it, but somebody is funding it.
Yes.
And is that when I see the stuff in the campuses? I don't know who's funding it. I don't know if it's Iran or Qatar.
No, Iran are funding these protests.
But my point is that like whoever it is not a grassroots movement.
No.
So it's kind of like part of a propaganda machine.
Yeah.
Okay. But then you're saying that also like the anti-government protest is a part of a propaganda machine by that.
No, I was very impressed with how the Israeli society, that protest movement, I thought it was amazing. I thought they were really showing, at the time, the threat at the time. I was deeply concerned about it and really felt like democracy was under threat here, really, really did. At the same time, when I am dealing with all this bureaucracy, you realise that democracy is actually thriving, because without bureaucracy, there's no democracy.
That's a really good point, actually.
Yeah. So,
no, but
I was super impressed with how the movement was here. This is all pre-October 7th. As I've mentioned in other podcasts, I feel differently about it all now, and don't want to necessarily be a part of the
bigger
protest.
fish to fry.
Bigger fish to fry, and also this thing. I don't want to feel like I'm a useful idiot fueling the Hamas propaganda, which I do think is going on here, but not intentionally for that reason.
Right. Yeah, and by the way, I think it's the same in the UK or in America or in any campus. I actually think a lot of people go to those protests for all the right reasons. Yeah. I know people that go to those protests in London for the right reasons.
Right.
And because they actually think like, you know, why not spend the weekend just showing some support for something good or for some justice and to stop the war? And I know a lot of people, there's a lot of like people that travel along, they don't know anything about the flags that are shown there or what's written in some of the banners there. So they don't know like all the different layers. They've never been to Israel or Gaza or have family or friends.
They have no idea.
So it's but
no idea.
But it's still nice to just get behind the cause, because people just do something to feel better about themselves. It feels nice. There's a sense of like unity, and I'm doing something good on my weekend.
Yeah, and I've got to say, when I was part of the anti-government protests, I really enjoyed being part of the Israeli-British community, because there were no British Jews going to those protests.
Right.
It was all Israelis living in the UK, and I really tried to understand why we couldn't engage with the British community. They saw it as many. I'm not talking all, but many saw it as being anti-Semitic to go against the Israeli government, and so wouldn't get behind the movement. So when I was part of that movement, I really enjoyed being with the Israeli community in London, and I did feel a part of it, and I did feel like I was contributing to this cause. But then things do change. This war has changed our world.
And in hindsight, do you think it was efficient and effective way, and did it contribute to change something?
I felt like I was on a losing battle most of the time. It was a losing battle.
Right, but I think also, by the way, the people that like walking in London campus, they also know they're in a losing battle. But it makes them feel like a part of a community. You know, it's like if you're like a university and people I don't know, don't have many friends or don't get laid and need to feel part of a bigger cause. It's true though.
Yeah.
It's like in terms of practical terms, it's not like they have like families in Gaza or in southern Israel. So anyway, that's why I'm always amazed at how people are affected, but kind of like going back to propaganda. What do you think of like the videos and the footage that we've seen over the past couple of weeks? And do you consider that propaganda?
To tell the truth, I felt sick to my stomach, and not just sick to my stomach, it's actually coming out.
Right.
So I am vomiting regularly.
Wow.
At the moment.
That's an exclusive for you. No, but it's true. It affects like people physically, mentally, the sleep. I've had skin reactions, hair reactions, sleep reactions.
Yeah.
Like
skin reactions as well.
Yeah, the whole thing is like it's like when you're like unsettled and stuff. It manifests in all sort of like physical, emotional ways. But yeah, I mean, but in terms of the propaganda value and impact of the images we've seen for the past 2 weeks, what do you make out of it? I'll tell you what I think then.
Go on.
So I stopped.
Well, I've just said I feel sick. It makes me feel sick.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Right. Well, I'm just surprised that the world is broadcasting those live weekend events. I think, by the way, they are done on a weekend for a purpose, which is to get the maximum television audience.
And
like
on a
Super Bowl
Shabbat on a Shabbat for Israel.
Right.
Let's disrupt everyone's Shabbat again.
Yeah, but and again, I'm not sure people fully understand how calculated everything is.
Yeah.
There is a reason why both Iranian missile attacks were on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
Because they want to get the maximum audience of the weekend.
Yeah.
And all the weekend papers. There is a reason why they're doing these exchange and hostage deals on a weekend, because they want maximum audience. And at the end of the day, it's a huge spectacle. They're able to broadcast this propaganda showcasing whatever we want with the knife, with the Red Cross, whatever. Do these disgusting, gross.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to call it like it's not even Truman Show. It's like a Hunger Games or Squid Game. And by the way, I'm just shocked that people keep broadcasting it, because it's just encouraging more of it, and by the way, they're gonna get bigger and bigger and nastier, but the truth is people love violence, and it makes great television, and people want to see more of it, and people love to see dead people love to see, oh my god, what's the hostage gonna look like, if he's gonna be alive or in a box. So all that stuff, that's what people want to watch on television. And the same, by the way, with Palestinians. People love dead Palestinians because it gives people an opportunity to be like, oh my god, how the world is so cruel. How can we live in a world like this? It makes them feel better about themselves. That's why people love Holocaust movies, because it makes them feel better about themselves. How did the world like that happen? It just makes people feel like reassured and righteous that they are above. I could never live in a society that would not happen around them. So it just, and again, that's why I never watched the news in my life until this war started. The most news I watched was like, I don't know, some Metro newspaper that 5 people already sneezed on in the tube on the way to work. That was literally how much, and like, a few headlines to just get a gist of what's going on, but I never cared. And in the past 15 months, I'm literally watching news like 10 hours a day. I also watch like Spanish, British, American, Israeli, sometimes even like French, German, Canadian, sometimes Australian, just to get a sense of what's going on. But I just think after like what I witnessed 2 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
I just shut down because I'm like, that stuff should not be broadcasted. And by the way, I'm even more upset that how Israeli media is treating it,
Right.
and how they're really going in for
And
like
they really are.
the cameras in the faces of these girls
Yeah.
that really should be
Yeah.
like in a recovery period that should take months if not years, and the families. I just
I-
think like the sensationalism and how intrusive the media is
Very
being is disgusting.
I think it's been seeing the hostages reunite with the families. I'm just like, do the cameras need to be there? Can we not just say it that they've now been reunited with their families and just leave it at that?
There's also big
Because-
screen in public squares. I mean, well,
Yeah,
you're
it's-
encouraging that.
There's something deeply uncomfortable, isn't there? And whilst I do want to see the release, like this is what we've been fighting for, is
Right.
for our hostages to come home. So
Right.
I do want to see the releases. I also don't want to feel part of this circus.
Right.
It's so that's why I choose to be by myself when it's the release. I just, I don't need to have some sort of viewing party here.
And especially when that viewing party is controlled and scheduled by Hamas, which is saying
Yeah.
on Saturday at 6 o'clock we're gonna do this live show
Yeah.
with a stage. So
Yeah.
I always say, like, if I've been so critical about all these propaganda videos for the past 15 months coming out of Gaza, what, you think I'm not going to be just as critical as when the videos are happening here with these hostage release
Yeah.
montages? No, I don't think that stuff should be shown. I don't think that stuff should be broadcasted. And if it does, it should be done under a banner. This is the terrorist propaganda
Yeah,
video
right,
that they're pushing to the world, just trying to
Completely.
help people understand that this is not, by the way, that's not what's happening. And that's why I keep saying, that's not the reality for people in Gaza, that's not the reality for people here. And then they always do that, and they go and show that thing, and then they cut to these people in the hostage square in Tel Aviv going like, yeah, and hugging, and they're waiting for next week where there's going to be like some hugs, some tears, depending on who comes alive and who comes dead. So the whole thing, I just think the whole thing's so
Yeah.
demented,
It is.
disgusting, psychotic. So for the last 2 weeks, I stopped watching news, and I think I'm gonna stop for now. I mean, I do still get the headlines and see some bits on
Yeah.
social media and things, but the whole thing of like waiting on somebody to broadcast that just while the world
Yeah.
just watches for a bigger show,
It's
is
uncomfortable.
really dehumanizing.
Yeah.
It's so.
Agreed.
It's the lowest of the low form of entertainment.
Yeah.
And this comes from someone, I love violence on film. I love like scary movies,
you?
action movies, explosions, guns, cop shows, the whole of it. But and that's why I never like the news, because I've always felt like the news is just a way to tribalize and politicize violence and this stuff. And that's what makes me really upset, that ultimately it's a TV show just for the world to watch at the expense of people here in Gaza or wherever. So this is not entertainment.
No.
And when you watch it in
Yeah,
the news
that's
to
the
feel
thing,
better
it's-
about yourself, and when you turn it into like this televised political game and everyone feels like they need to have an opinion, and it's like, are you right wing or left wing based on, do you think Israel should this? It's like, who gives a shit? It's
Yeah.
like, don't turn it into this, don't turn people into political football for your entertainment. And if that hadn't happened, and people that have never been here didn't have an opinion that is so strong and that it helps them align so deeply with their right wing or left wing party,
Yeah.
then stuff wouldn't be amplified, and the war wouldn't continue. It's just the fact that everyone keeps just throwing kind of like coal to the fire and made it for some weird reason like this, which is actually, in the wider scheme of things, is a tiny conflict. If you compare to what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, this is literally like
Yeah.
tiny for
Yeah.
both Israel and for Gaza. It's
Yeah,
like
but the
tiny.
minute Israel's involved, we know it's going
But that's
to
my point.
be the
Be-
centre stage.
Because no conflict in the world gets politicized like this.
No.
And because we end up becoming political footballs, and it's like, well, if you vote this, then you are like, free Palestine. If you vote that, Israel should defend. So
Yeah.
it's like, that's terrible. That's the real tragedy here. That
Oh, there's
people,
so much division.
No, not the
No?
division of the fact that people use this conflict to define their political views abroad.
Right.
This is how this conflict is used.
Yeah.
If you're left wing,
You're
pro-Palestine. If you're right wing, Israel, anti-terrorism and stuff. And why are you using this conflict as a springboard to showcase your political views? That's the real tragedy of people here. That's why people keep dying here, because we're just being used as political footballs. So until that doesn't stop, and you don't see like Israel as this like evil imperialist, colonialist, ethno state, whatever, Bibi Netanyahu is this monster, or you don't see Palestinians as this like they're all terrorists, they all want to kill everyone, they all want to blow everyone up, they're all this and that. So like, or the other way around, or vice versa, Israel, they're all saints and one people and all of, like, it's not that. So I just think the politicization of it, but then again, it's very useful to politicize a conflict like this, because in England, it's much easier for any politician, right or left, to just go, well, to open up a debate about the right of Israel to defend itself. There you go. You've got a beautiful, long debate to fill a whole session. It's a lot easier to do that than to open up a debate about, the NHS.
Yeah.
Well,
the NHS is in such a mess, and nobody wants to touch it.
But that's my point. It is much easier to open up a debate by a British politician about the proportionality of Israel's military response than it is to start talking about the proportionality of how much money goes into NHS and the waiting times in A&E.
Yeah.
So it is these conflicts are really useful for a lot of people to define their political identity and to deflect from talking about other stuff. And again, this is also nothing new. That's kind of like the nature of like news.
Yeah.
That's why I say, to me, propaganda, more often than not, is about what is not shown than what is shown.
Oh, yeah.
And that applies to this conflict as well. It's like everything is a decoy. It's like Gaza, 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 nobody's talking about Iran. Hostage deal, hostage deal, hostage deal. Actually, anyone that really cares about Palestinians, like, all eyes should be on Rafah now.
Yeah.
Because, if Hamas stay in powers, that's going to determine, number one, whether they're just going to live under the shittiest Taliban regime and they're going to be shot. And last week, 10 people got executed in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Another 17 people got shot in the legs. Not a peep.
Yeah.
So, all eyes
by Hamas.
Yeah, but my
By
point
Hamas.
is that, like, all after the ceasefire by Hamas. So, like, my point is, like, if anybody really cared, like, all eyes should be on Rafah now.
Yeah.
Because that's going to determine their future. It's also going to determine the future for Israel, whether in like 5, 6, 7 years they rearm and they rinse and repeat, which is terrible. So then it just shows you, like,
Well, Hamas have made it very clear that that's what their intention
I
are.
know, but my point is kind of like going back to like the whole propaganda debate. Is like, we saw this huge campaign, all eyes on Rafah, and then it's like complete silence.
Right.
Or like, my point is that, like, the attention of people.
What did I see
is
the other day? Choose Love on Instagram. You
Yeah.
know that movement, Choose Love? And it was this post, all eyes on the West Bank, all eyes on the West Bank, all eyes on the West Bank. It's like, wow. But choose love now. Choose love.
I just don't know. I just think my issue is that, like, the eyeballs of the people are constantly sending in the wrong direction. That's why I never used to watch news, and that's why I think I'm not going to watch news again.
Yeah.
Because it just sends your eyes to the wrong direction. And something that maybe people will find quite interesting is also, by the way, I mean, again, I'm not the owner of truth. I can tell you what I see, what I feel, being here, a perspective from a local person. But of course, I'm also like influenced and biased in my opinion and what I think. Right? We're all influenced and biased. It's always really interesting because I always say, like, it's so clear when I speak to friends in Spain, friends of family in Spain, or in England, or in Canada, or in South America, wherever. It's so clear to see, especially when you speak to people that have never been to Israel, never been to the Middle East. Their opinion is so in line with their current government and with what is shown in their local media. So it's just really interesting. It's really interesting. Like, what I hear from American friends and what I hear from Spanish friends and what I hear from Peruvian friends and what I hear from is so that's fascinating. And that's why in this conflict it's interesting, because people use it as a springboard to just further their agenda and avoid talking about the local issues. And anyway, I just think that's really interesting. And of course, I will also be influenced by some of the stuff I'm exposed to here, for sure. I don't really watch a lot of local news, but I do read some local press in English and stuff, but I'm not really fully...
See, I don't really watch Israeli TV, but I watch ILTV news.
Right.
I love that 25-minute.
But in a way, that is Israeli TV.
It is, yeah, it is.
It's just in English.
It is. It's in English. So I watch, ILTV. They
Right.
do a 25-minute segment
Yeah.
every day,
Yeah.
and I24 as well.
Right.
And I like them, but I found on Saturday a lot of they're such heroes, the hostages. It's like, can we just give them some space? Can we just give them?
Right.
Can we just calm down a bit? Like,
How
we're
much
all
of it
so
do you feel is-
excited to have them back. We are so
Right.
excited to have them back, but can we just leave the?
How much do you think of it as like as propaganda, though? Going back
I
to the
don't think it's
subject,
propaganda.
that's a sensationalist media. I think it's just sensationalist media.
I agree.
It's that kind of like morbid obsession
Yeah.
for like. It's like when Princess Diana died. Everyone just
Yeah.
wants to know. I want to see a picture of the body, and I want
Yeah,
to see this,
yeah.
and how did she die, and what did she eat, and everyone
Yeah.
wants to know like the grossest,
Yeah.
most disgusting graphic detail.
Yeah.
Or like Kate Middleton's cancer. Everyone wants to know like what clinic and what did she eat. She's
Yeah.
gonna lose her hair. Everyone wants to know like the most disgusting,
Yeah.
violent
And it's
details
just
about
nobody's
someone's
bloody
misery.
business, is it?
Right. Well,
I mean,
it's true. It's the
when-
families. It's
the
it's
families,
for them
and,
to
and
go.
listen, the hostages has become the nation's business. It has, but in terms of
Exactly. But the way it has become like this. And by the way, I also consider some of the media treatment as a form of propaganda because, and especially when I saw like Netanyahu and the government going out and saying we've done this, we've achieved it, what the people wanted.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like dangling a little carrot
Yeah.
in front of Danke
Yeah.
while he's probably planning the next 3 to 5 moves. Which again, I don't think is a terrible thing. Also, knowing how people behave here, he's like, okay, I'll just give you a bit of what you want. This is what you've been screaming. While he's probably focusing on like the 5 next steps to whatever for Israel, this, that, the other, figuring out things with Trump. I don't know. It's just speculation. But
So-
my point is like people here are also like really exposed to propaganda. Do you not think?
yeah, I do. Just going back to that point, BB Trump. There's no way BB would have agreed to this deal. There's just no way. And so I think that
But he did.
he did. Eventually. But it is a bad deal.
You say eventually, like he's just like a stubborn kid that had to be convinced.
I think he did. I think Trump did convince. I think Trump was the person who convinced him.
It's not convincing. He just forced it.
Forced him. Whatever
Which is
it was,
right.
convinced, forced, whatever
Right.
it was, that deal was made, that deal was done. We are getting some of our hostages, but nowhere near what we should be getting. We're not getting what,
Well, nobody should be taken in the first place.
nobody should be taken in the first place. We're not even getting all of them back. We're releasing murderers and God knows what. There's just no way he would have agreed to it had he not been forced
Yeah.
into it.
Well, I mean-
and so I do think there is a bigger picture going on.
No, of course.
And I think that does involve Iraq, and we will soon see.
I have no idea. Again, that's all speculation.
Yeah, it's all
I can only speak about
Yeah.
what I see. I can only see. I mean, and I don't know what Trump said to Bibi, what Bibi thinks about the future, what Trump thinks about the past. I don't know. I don't care. A lot of people would also say, actually, if the military action would have been a lot more forceful from the get-go initially, everyone would be out and the war would have been over like a year ago. But it wasn't.
No.
So, and the American administration was really ambiguous from the beginning and not being like really clear about so anyone can speculate what if, but whatever, like that doesn't even matter. You're right, that what matters is that those people are brought back home.
Right.
That's the priority for everyone in this
Everyone
country.
in this country.
And-
We are fighting like mad for it.
Of course.
And
Of course. Paying ransom for it at the end of the
Pay
day.
ransom, and we understand the absolute importance of bringing them. Like, if we don't bring them home, what's that? The
Of
repercussions
course.
of that.
Of course. It's it's also interesting, I keep saying it and going to the protest, it's like, by the way, everyone everywhere also knows that was the priority for Israel, and everyone knew there wouldn't be any type of ceasefire that they were shouting for without some kind of agreement, and yet you would never see one single protester in any university in any city calling for the release of the hostages. So that that really shows you. If that doesn't show you,
Okay.
to me, I just understood completely that they were not
Oh.
about peace protests. When number one, they would never call for the release of the hostages, so they just want literally a ceasefire so that they can pause and then resume the fighting at the time of their choosing. Number two, they would never say for Egypt to open the borders. So they really, just like Poland did when the war started in Ukraine, and they let people passage through. Never. They don't, they literally don't give a shit.
Yeah, and I see it on social media. That actress Nadia Sawalha just pisses me right off.
Who's that?
She's an actress, she was on Loose Women, one of those. And
that's a CV that really makes me wanna respect her opinion.
Anyway,
she's an actress. They was on Loose Women.
I used to quite like her, but she's become
Loose Women is like The View, by the way, for our 1.5 American viewers.
This Israel is doing this to the children of Gaza,
right.
And look at this, and it's like, Nadia, if you just call for the release of the hostages,
those children
and for Hamas to surrender, those children will have a future. But she doesn't see that, and she doesn't call for that. And so Israel.
It's always the same shit. Again, this has been going on since forever.
Right.
I just think to propaganda, something else I wanted to say is on Friday I went to my parents in Jerusalem, and to get there I have to go to the train station.
Yeah.
So I walked to the train station. On the way to the train station, I saw in that square the picture I sent you with the anti-government protests. So one of them said, defend democracy. The other one said, bring all the hostages and no to this government, something like that. Then I keep walking. I see these huge billboards of women faces that were either murdered or raped in October 7. With kind of UN, you failed us, Me Too unless you're a Jew, all this stuff. Then I go into the station, I see all the faces plastered with faces of dead soldiers in every little pillar, everything everywhere. On another side of the station, these huge bring them home. Then you look up, you have these huge towers, Israeli center with a massive count of how many days people have been contagious and the huge ribbon. I arrived to Jerusalem and I start seeing posters only until victory for baby. So what I'm trying to say is people don't really understand how intense that is.
Very
For
intense.
me, I'm can I just go somewhere without turning my head and seeing some kind of propaganda poster or some kind of massive thing about someone that has been killed or fighting or dead or raped
the
or thing.
answer is
It's
no.
you cannot go anywhere in Jerusalem. I mean, you go to Disney Square, the toys of the kids and the bloods and the faces. You go to the airport and you go through the faces. It's so fucking intense.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot.
It's
a lot. I'm going to London in April and I just can't wait. I just need.
It's so funny. You can't wait. I'm to do without it.
I just need.
I am looking forward to seeing my family. And
I just need some headspace.
Yeah.
That's when I went to to Spain 2 weeks ago. I'm I cannot just. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. The temperature is. And by the way, Israel is a pretty intense place to live.
It is.
Anyway.
It's intense anyway.
But during wartime,
Yeah.
it's the volume just. It just multiplied.
Yeah.
And with all these posters, it's a lot. It's a lot.
So my advice would be get a weekly massage. That's what I'm doing now.
Right. Well, I stopped watching
Really
the
helps.
news, and I think that's going to
Yeah,
be
that's
really
good.
good. And I just guess for anyone that I think what always surprises me, yes, we're all biased, yes, we're all influenced by all sorts of propaganda sources, news sources, biased news sources, commentators, reporters. I think what always surprised me is that people have such a strong opinion about what's going on here, especially the people that have never been here. Because I don't know, it's if somebody had a really strong opinion of the issue with Catalonia in Spain, if somebody had really strong opinions on Brexit that has never been to England. So it's always really interesting how people feel, number one, entitled to have a strong opinion. Again, I mean, everyone's entitled to an opinion. Everyone has opinion, just who said that? Just like everyone has an asshole, everyone has an opinion. That's the reality, and that's okay. Everyone is fine. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
But when you hear someone lecturing you that have never been here, it's oh.
Yeah.
So it's funny.
But we offer our tour guide services for those who haven't been here.
Oh yeah, come over.
Come over.
For sure. I mean,
Best tour guides, us too.
No, I'd also tell you the only thing that I can guarantee you, anyone that I know that has been to Israel for the first time, their opinions and their idea of everything, there's such a huge gap between what they see and what they expect based on what they see in the news. Usually, they're
Yeah, they're blown away.
They're blown away.
Yeah.
Their minds are shattered. They're like, wait, but I thought this.
Yeah,
wait,
right.
but this is that.
Yeah, it's
wait, but
insane.
where's that?
Yeah.
They're literally like,
I know.
wait, but you do
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is.
So I think that's kind of like also another effect of like the propaganda and yeah, just I always say just be really skeptical about what you see and what you hear.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter from who it comes. It doesn't matter if it's like right or left, or Jew or non-Jew, or pro-Israel, pro-Gaza. It doesn't matter, because I think the whole thing is such a distorted view, and that's why I feel like that's why I feel entitled and empowered to speak, because I know what's going on here.
Yeah.
And by the way, I also know with more detail than I would like to know what's happening in Gaza. I do know.
Yeah.
I do know.
Yeah.
I know stuff that I couldn't even say out loud about like how shitty it is there, and what a shit show is going on here.
Yeah.
It doesn't look anything like what people see in the news. It's not just the typical picture of like, you know, the woman with the children in the back screaming this and with a camera in front of them. It doesn't look like that. It's actually 100 times worse.
Yeah.
It's just not televised, but it doesn't look like that. People, and again, that's why I say like the whole hostage thing and the hostage patient suffering. It doesn't look like the circus you're seeing on a Saturday. That's not the reality here.
It's not.
And that's not the reality. And when they show, here with a hospital in Gaza with all this incubator, we're running out of electricity in 3 hours. That's not true.
Yeah.
But again, that doesn't mean that the people living there are having the shittiest times of their lives.
Right.
And that's indisputable.
Yeah.
And I actually know that I know what that looks like and what that sounds like and what that smells like and what that entails. So, and that's what I get so angry and frustrated at times, because actually violence in real life doesn't look or feel like violence on television. And I know people are hooked to the news, and I know that people are hooked to like violence because it's sexy and appealing and it makes people feel good about themselves. But in reality, it's just really gross.
Yeah, it is.
It's really disgusting, and it's disgusting when it happens in Gaza and it happens all this, October 7th. The reality of it, there's nothing pretty, there's nothing...
No. But I think, you know, moral of the story is propaganda very much exists.
And we're all exposed to it.
We're all exposed to it, and we all have to be
I would say
mindful.
talk to people. Talk to people. Talk to someone. I mean, speak to someone from Gaza. Speak to someone from Tel Aviv. Speak to an IDF soldier. Speak to someone in the south of Lebanon. Speak to someone in Aleppo. See what they think.
Yeah.
Speak to someone that had to escape Iran and that is living in London now. Ask them what they think about the conflict. So I think like actually I often get a better picture from speaking with people that have opposing views and different perspectives than I get from some kind of like clip with some soundtrack, especially when it comes from like a jihadist Taliban group.
Yeah.
I mean, if you expect that to be a source of
You
information,
can't.
which is the real tragedy of this war, I think, and people have been really responsible publishing that shit. But here we are. So that's kind of like a little view of propaganda wars. I hope it gives you some food for thought, and we'll speak more about more stuff.
We will. Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye.